Okay, we're going to get going in about a minute with a special meeting with the Police Commission. I'll just ask people who are here to kindly turn your camera on so I know you're with us. Hello. Once again, the chief has the best background of all of us. All right, it's good to see everybody. Why don't we call this special meeting to order? The Board of Selectmen. The purpose of this meeting is to have a presentation and engage in dialogue with the Police Commission about their 2021-22 budget priorities. And this is, I guess, the official kickoff of our budget season, which continues into the spring and finally ends at May in referendum. And looking forward to having questions from the board and the dialogue with members of the Police Commission who are volunteers who serve our community with a focus on the police department. Who from the Police Commission will be leading the presentation?
That would be me. Good evening. I am Jenna Caulfield, the newly appointed chair of our Police Commission. With me this evening are my fellow commissioners, Mike Long, I think, there he is, Terry Fogarty, Travis Schweizer, and our newest member, Tanisha Grant. And we also have the chief and deputy chief with us this evening. The reason we're here this evening is because public safety is of paramount importance, and the public safety budget should be considered first. That's why the town charter and our recently adopted MOU tasked this commission with preparing and submitting and presenting the budget for the police department to you, the Board of Selectmen. The budget we are presenting is the absolute minimum that we feel necessary to provide adequate public safety to the citizens of Simsbury. So while there is an increase over fiscal year 21, it is still a lean and fiscally responsible budget. The increases are based on factors outside of our control, including the population growth of the town, as well as the recent enactment of the Act concerning police accountability. So there are three main items we just want to discuss with you tonight. The first is with regard to staffing. We are, like we did last year, asking for an increase in staffing. We are asking for 3 more sworn officers as well as 1 civilian accreditation specialist. And currently the ratio of officers to residents in town is 1.6. I'm going to apologize if these numbers are redundant from last year, but I think it's important to note that the national average is 1.9. The average for the Northeast is 1.8. The average for New England is 1.9. The average in Connecticut is 1.9. And the comparable town average, which is what the personnel subcommittee uses, is 1.7. So if we are to go from our current 39 sworn officers to the 42 we are requesting, that would just simply bring us to the comparable town ratio. Now, this is not solely based on numbers. Our staffing needs also consider the volume and type of services we provide, whether it's patrolling neighborhoods and businesses and parks or participating in community events. We're considering things like the need for a traffic officer. In years past, we had a traffic officer, which was a very effective position. It's not just general traffic enforcement of issuing tickets. They respond to complaints. They handle areas where there's a lot of traffic, and they also help identify and resolve problems, whether it's the line of sight or roadway design or markings and signage. And these problem identification help promote compliance with our laws, as well as prevent injury and damage to both our citizens and the property around town. With regard to the civilian accreditation specialist, we are currently using a patrol officer in that position. and she's been amazing. She's done it for the last 10 years and has knocked it out of the park. However, by adding a civilian member to the department, it allows us to use the professionalism and the skills of our sworn officer for whether it's patrol or traffic or detective duties. The second area we want to talk to you about is training. It is imperative that our officers have the best training possible. And the Police Accountability Act has also given us sweeping changes for specific training. We recently had 2 of our officers complete the LEADS, which is the Law Enforcement Active De-Escalation Strategies training. These strategies, this training prepares the officers with strategies to prevent the use of force, and if they have to use force, strategies to do so. During fiscal year 22, each sworn officer will need to go through these de-escalation strategy trainings. That'll be 8 hours each, and it will be repeated annually. In addition, we have a very exciting opportunity to purchase a virtual training simulator. If we are the first in Connecticut to do so, we might be able to even get it at a very discounted rate. And I don't know if you have seen the link to it, but it's really cool. It is scenario-based, it's realistic, it gives any variety of opportunities where officers can be trained in de-escalation and use of force, whether that is in mental health situations or domestic violence. It has active shooter, it has school lockdowns. It's really kind of amazing. And it does have an endless number of scenarios that the officers can be trained in. It also does not require a designated space. So it can be used outdoors, it can be used indoors, which is very helpful because that brings us to our third area that we would like to discuss with you, which is the office space renovations. As you are aware, the space within the department is extremely limited. As an immediate solution to our current shortage of space, we are proposing renovations of the current setup of the chiefs and lieutenant areas. These renovations, we are hoping would be possible to take the offices we have now and make them smaller to create 2 additional offices. Renovating this space while serving our current needs would also not prohibit the space from being used as office space later on. It is a multi-use type of thing. It wouldn't be specific to the needs of the police department. So the budget we are asking and presenting to you does provide for more staff and more training, which then gives the citizens of Simsbury a safer town with better and safer public safety services. And since public safety is of the utmost importance, we hope that you will agree with us. And if you have any questions or concerns, I or any of the commissioners would be more than happy to answer them or address them to the chief or deputy chief. Or you can just look at our budget, we'll be on our way.
No, Eric, I didn't know if Eric was looking for. Oh.
No, sure. Let Sean, what did you?
Somebody watching us on TV? If anybody has their TV on, please turn it off. Eric, you're looking for comments from us?
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay. So that all sounds very good. Do you have numbers for us and context for percentage increases or what this might do? Doing my best to remember how much 3 officers might cost, but are we talking about a 2% increase or a 10% increase or what? Just contextually, what are we talking about here?
Chief, do you know off the top of your head, or I can look in my packet?
Yeah, no, roughly it's a 7.5% increase for personnel and the needs that go right along with the personnel, the equipment.
And that would be on top of the normal salaries and Benny increase?
That's inclusive of that.
That is inclusive of, okay.
Inclusive, yes.
Okay. And then patrol cars, additional, all the stuff that goes with it is contemplated as well in the other line items?
Yes. Yep. So the cruisers are in there as well. Yep. The only thing that's not in that 7.5% is capital items.
Yeah.
Other than the cars.
And then just keeping on my, thanks, Chief. And then keeping on my train of thought. So remind me again, the renovations, I believe we've seen, Maria, right, renovations on the capital improvement plan for a number of years. This sounds like a scaled down version of that. Is that correct?
Sure. So the renovation, I believe, Sean, that you're recalling is the proposed renovation to the main level of Town Hall.
No, there was a police department one on there 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
That might have predated me. That's not ringing a bell. Oh, Nick is. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Chief is waving his head. Yes.
it did predate you. I think it was on there for maybe 1 year back with Rich Sawitsky, and it was a whole new building up on the upper lot.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah. So this is completely different. This is, potentially using the existing footprint that we have in two sections here, gutting the existing office space and making them smaller to add an office space to each of those two spaces.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, just trying to get some context for that.
Sean, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm good. I'm good for a second.
One thing I wanted to dig into with this group is to get more context on the need for the 3 additional officers. Beyond bringing us in line with comparable towns from a per capita perspective, what are some of the shortcomings or problems that this group feels would be solved by adding additional sworn officers?
Jenna, would you like me to address that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So there are a bunch of things, and probably what we can see most clearly, there are requests for the police presence throughout town for traffic enforcement. We have seen a drastic increase in the amount of people who are looking for enforcement and looking for cruisers on their streets. And we have not been able to provide that with the numbers that we do have. So we had a traffic enforcement officer that was in place from 2008 to 2017. And because our numbers, at 38 drifted below that because of either vacancies or extensions of leave, whatever it may be, we had to pull that traffic enforcement officer. At the same time, we had to pull one of our 3 detectives. And our numbers haven't been up that high enough to be able to allow for a return of the traffic enforcement officer. And in fact, I would like a traffic enforcement officer on the day shift and the evening shift. So their focus can be addressing those things that cause us injury, cause us damage. So that's one reason why we should get those levels up, so we can, with a vacancy or 2 here and there, which we seem to have every year, with some extended leave, either due to military, non-work related injury, work-related injury, whatever it may be. With those leaves, we're still able to staff and have these services that we need. Another, for instance, is there are activities throughout the year that we can't necessarily commit to because we don't have the numbers for that. So whether it's a fair at one of the local churches, it's a speaking event, other types of engagements. There are meetings that are happening throughout town on a regular basis that I feel it would be a big benefit if we were in the know and if they had some contacts for us. So the Village of Terriffill meets on a monthly basis. Every once in a while, we used to attend those. It would be nice to be able to attend that type of meeting. And so we just don't have the numbers to be able to do that. So, and then just one other real quick one. It takes time, for the type of policing that we do. So it's not a matter of let's move on to the next call, to the next call, to the next call. We really take a lot of pride in taking the time to try to problem solve. And we don't want to have our response time to calls. We don't want to have a whole lot of delays because we're not able to get somewhere. We want to be able to spend the amount of time with a person who is having a dispute with their neighbor and try to problem solve instead of moving on to the next thing. And that takes people, and that takes a steady flow of people who are available. And that's why I think our number at 42 would get us just to that comparable level. And it really depends on what population number you use, because the number we use is 24,307. All it takes is another 700 to get us now to fall below even with that 42. So it depends on what number you use. But that's the reason to sort of look at those numbers, because we're also comparing to other places that do a very similar style, policing that we do.
If I may, Jenna, are you here?
Yeah, Mike.
Anyway, speaking as someone who's been on this board for a few years, I recall that when Chief Ingerson came on board 19 years ago, the emphasis that both the commission at that time and the Board of Selectmen at that time was to develop this community into a police-friendly community. It's to bring community policing, if you will, to this town. And we were able to do that for probably 10 of those years. And that involves stuff that you never even think of. And the chief reminded me of one of them, and problems you don't last. But I know that I got into trouble in my particular religious affiliation when the pastor said, hey, we couldn't rely on you guys for something. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, we had a youth fair for our young people. It had all sorts of different professions there present, talking about what they do and that sort of thing. And we had to have 2 policemen from Farmington come to our fair because Simsbury couldn't spare anybody to be there. And I understand that. And we couldn't. But it's that type of thing. And that's just a little micro look at stuff. But it's that type of thing that is so important to bring not just law enforcement into the community, which some people, that's all they look at, is the law enforcement. But we are looking at the other side of the coin there. And we're trying to bring the need for law enforcement down by having knowledge and awareness and education for people all across the spectrum of our citizens in town. And the only way you can do that is to have visibility and have policemen who people get to know for whatever reason. And we've been fighting for the past at least 5 years, maybe a little longer than that, an uphill battle because we've fallen behind. That number of a comparison to other communities is just a number, you're right. But it does have something behind it. And it gives you an idea of what most communities find that they need in order to have an effective department. And we have been behind that, solidly behind it for the last 4 years and struggling to catch up every year. And with our population growth that we've had in this community in the past 2 or 3 years, we're getting further behind instead of catching up. And I would, very much myself personally like to see us get even with the game here somewhere in order that we can be ahead of it. Not necessarily ahead of it in numbers of people, but ahead of it in the education for law-abiding citizens as opposed to just the enforcement of laws. Because that's a never-ending battle. That's a dog chasing its tail. And we've been in that situation. It's not a comfortable situation to be in. And we're trying to come even this year and be able to hopefully stay there for the foreseeable future. So that's my 2 cents. And it's when I hear that the Farmington policemen are volunteering time in Simsbury because we can't get anybody to do it, that hurts, That hurts me. But so be it. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Was someone else going to jump in?
I do appreciate that, Mike, and I understand it as being directly connected to both you and the commission, and working with the chief. The argument makes sense to me. The story makes sense. The challenge we have is that when we get to the numbers and the crunching, and I'm saying the same thing you've known longer than I have, right? It's a harder sell for us to the Board of Finance and to the community when we talk about, I think the answer is we're safe today, right? And we're not unsafe because of our staffing levels. Nobody on this call thinks we're unsafe. And is 3 more officers going to make us more safe? Probably. Is it going to make us visibly more safe? No. Are less cars going to get stolen because people leave their keys in them? No. There's not going to be less cyber crimes. Unfortunately, it's not going to change that, right? But it is going to increase the presence and hopefully ward off some of the visible bad stuff, the crap that happens at night, the kids stuff, the motor vehicle stuff. And I get that. I quantify it. So it's a challenging argument for us to sell to some folks, and sell's the wrong word, to make when we are talking about comparables or attending, events that to a lot of people don't feel like policing. But for those of us here, we know that it is. Showing up at a child's classroom doesn't feel like policing to a lot of people. But I mean, Chief, it absolutely is, right? The police are our friends. We all teach our kids in this community that when you see you run to an officer when you're in trouble. The officers are your friends. They go to daycares, they go to schools for a reason. That's part of the community police philosophy, right? You go to Septemberfest, not just for crowd issues, but also as volunteers, and let kids get in the cruisers. And that we're not supposed to be afraid of the police. We're supposed to make sure that we run to them. So I get that. But the more you can help us arm with, in terms of the crime side, and again, not the bear statistics where we all get on Facebook and call, 911 because there's a bear in our neighbor's yard. But the numbers that you all folks give us during the budget presentation is always really compelling to me. The thousands of calls for service that the police attend, right? I mean, the police officers are the first one on scene for any motor vehicle accident, any call for 911 in this community, right? Whether it specifically was a need for the police or not. So, I think that needs to continue to be the leading story, as our officers are showing up first and every time. And Chief, as you talked about response times, I know you're not going to let response times dip. But, if we are vulnerable to those changing by 30 seconds or a minute, folks need to understand what that means when we talk about the money in the budget. That could be the difference between saving somebody's life or not, right? I mean, that makes a big difference. So as we get into the budget season, if we can continue to talk about not only the important stuff here, but how does that work for calls to service? How does that work for, and again, I'm not looking to scare anybody, but there is an impact to, if you don't staff a department, it takes longer to plow a road, right, Maria? I mean, we don't have enough plows on the street. It takes X amount longer to get out of your driveway. If we don't have enough police officers or ambulances or fire trucks, it takes longer for those services to be delivered. And in this space, that matters. So not asking anybody tonight, that's not what this is about. But as we formulate, the case not only for the community policing, but also the quantitative stuff of this is what it means when we get down to it, Chief, if that makes sense. I know that was a long ramble, but.
Well, I hear, if I may, just one minute on that. I hear exactly what you're saying, Sean. And, as you know, I did spend 10 years on the Board of Finance in this community, and I have been on the Board of Selectmen here. But I respectfully disagree with you when you say that a lot of those things don't make a difference. They do make a difference. It's just hard to quantify the difference.
Yeah, you're right.
At the end of the day, that decision comes down to you folks, not to us. We can tell you what we think is necessary from our visibility and our experience, but we don't have to choose between another cop on the street and whatever it is that you mentioned there. Somebody can make it.
Yep.
Question about it.
That's fair, Mike. Yep.
It's just I feel strongly that having a community where people don't worry about their safety and let them make decisions that, hey, this is a safe community. We don't even need cops. Well, that's like Washington last Wednesday. You got to believe what you see and what you know. Mm-hmm. And it's my belief that having a strong police department that people are comfortable with is a huge benefit to all of us. So I'll button up there.
I appreciate that.
You have them. If we can answer them, we'd love to try to do it.
Bruce, you have something to say?
Hi. I'm just hoping the dog doesn't take off barking here again. It's always, one thing is always a pleasure is having Mike on the line. I love his Whalers pennant behind him. So nonetheless, that's always a bonus to joining the police calls. It's it's interesting. You just mentioned some of the intangibles and what we see or don't see and stuff. During our break, I ran downstairs to the kitchen, tried to grab a bite to eat, and Christine was on a Zoom call because we have a daughter in 8th grade, and Officer Cushman was giving a presentation tonight. One of his presentations that he gives, informational for parents about certain concerns they have out there. And there's those things that, if I didn't have a daughter in 8th grade, I wouldn't know that service was being provided by an asset of the town. And certainly, as a parent who drives to different schools in the morning, it's welcoming to see officers at a school. And I'm glad that we have that manpower, woman-power capability to do that. And this would be something that we take up very seriously during the budget. Because it is one of the areas, I think, as a board, we really we always sort of try to find where we can, we rank what we can and can't do. And I think we generally err on the side of social service, safety, and public works deliverance. But whether it's graduated, whether it's 3, 2, 1, you've got my ear. And, last year was a tough year with the Board of Finance, and with the Board of Finance is always a group that's helping us. They're not working against us. They're always helping us organize our priorities. We made tough decisions, but we pushed through the assistant chief's position, and that was one of the ones I think, again, demonstrates that this board is, we're trying to. The last thing I'll just say and think about, the Mike, you've been, Mike Long and Mike Payne, you guys have been servants of this town long enough for many years. And the concept of shared services, it always gets sort of spoken to. And I think finally, because of the great efforts of some members of this board, members of town government, and other committees, we're starting to crack a little bit of shared services. We see some of the Board of Ed. Long question. What about the fire department? We talk about the civilian accountability. I can't imagine we're going to be bringing somebody in who has a great. I'm going to call, please. It's one of the boys coming in demanding the power cord here. I'm sorry. So we seemingly have 8 power cords in this house, and there's not only 1 left. I don't know where that. So
all right, Peterson, get to it before midnight. Come on, buddy.
Yeah. So, anyways, what about the fire department? Are there assets over there that we could do some of that as civilian accountability? I mean, we know that the fire department never asks for anything because they seemingly always have a way to find something. So I'm wondering, is there staffing over there that's doing a similar function for accreditation, accountability, metric management that maybe you guys could attach yourselves to and ask for assistance? That's just a suggestion. Who knows? All right. My sermon's over for tonight, Sean.
Nick, do you want to say something on that?
Yeah, Chris, I think you were talking about the accreditation specialist, and is there a way to work with the fire department on that? So that's basically a full-time position here. And,
I understand that.
Yeah, so it would be a little bit difficult, and the standards are very, very different. The concept of accreditation and professional standards would be the same, but what you're actually dealing with, you really have to be immersed in the activities of the police in order to do that. And if we were to have that position, we would be seeking somebody who has either a tremendous amount of police experience or something right along those lines with compliance and accreditation. What I really liked about us using a sworn person for that for many years now is it wasn't just the books. They had the actual practical along with it. So it was a really nice combination. I just think with our numbers being so low and where they are, that it's an opportunity for us to bring somebody in with hopefully a tremendous amount of experience, and then make use of a sworn officer and see how that works out for us. I don't see any shared opportunities with the fire department for accreditation.
Okay, I just pushed that for. Thank you for the explanation, Chief. I mean, just 2 things. I we have to find a way to make shared services work, and we continue down that path. And I think many residents look at emergency services as something that possibly is a place to start. So whether that was the idea or not, but there's other areas, I think at some point where the public safety budget is going to be under pressure, and we need to divert. We need to find alternative ways to solve some of the challenges with public safety. And I'll just leave it at that. I appreciate the presentation tonight. I don't know what this real cost is until we have this your ask baked into everybody else's ask. This is it's difficult to provide guidance about what will happen.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's quick. I'm not going to mention how last year we did approve the deputy police chief. I think you guys did ask for the 3 officers last year, but we prioritized the deputy that happened. The one thing that was intriguing to me, and Jenna, you mentioned that it's available. There's a link somewhere on the virtual training. If that's something that results in more safety for our officers and for anybody that our officers encounter. So I'm wondering, have we received a link to this budget that has the link that you're talking about? That would be something I'd be interested in seeing.
I don't know. I can get that link to you, or I can ask the chief to, which the link to the virtual training as well as our budget.
Yeah.
Chief, if you could, we could figure that out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
And just to clarify, to be fair to these guys, when I talked to Mike about setting this up, we, again, as it was framed, we really did want to talk about the high level priorities. What were the needs here? So again, and I know I asked right about the percentage. I just wanted some context for it, but these folks were not supposed to give us a line item budget tonight. Because, again, that's part of they're going to get another crack with us, obviously during the budget process. As the police department, I believe, is the largest department on the town side, and certainly worthy of our due diligence. But today was, I think, as Jenna framed very nicely in the memorandum of understanding, to make sure that we understood right up front what the priorities were of the police commission and the police department, so that we could have that right top of mind as we go into our budget thinking. So I didn't want anybody on the Board of Selectmen to think that they were supposed to submit line items to us or tonight. I specifically asked that we not get into, gasoline and overtime and all the fun things that we talk about in March.
We'll have time for that.
Oh yes, we'll have a whole day plus for that stuff.
Yeah, that's always fun. Okay, thanks.
I think this is important though. And again, it just to keep going with my quick sermon here, that, I think these are healthy conversations so that we hear directly from you guys, with the chief and the deputy chief on a little bit more of the context for it, and not, that, especially with our largest department, to make sure that we're appreciating what you folks are meeting about, every month. And you guys deal with very sensitive issues, ones that obviously we can't talk about here. But, you have a very different perspective, and it's good for this group to get together. And I think it probably is healthy for us to do it probably a couple times a year. If that makes sense, to make sure that, one, we have topics, but two, that we're hearing each other and sharing the perspective to make sure that we're all on the same page. Wow.
Thanks, John. Yeah, you're right. We don't want any surprises to pop up out of the blue. And these guys, the chief and now the deputy chief and the others, we put them through a grill just to get to the stage that we're at. So they understand what we're talking about, and hopefully it gives you folks on your board and the Board of Finance some comfort also that we have really pre-screened all of this, and it's not just pie in the sky that's coming out here. This is stuff that's been really considered and reconsidered, and we just wanted you to be aware of it so that later on during the year you're not caught by surprise, or you're not whatever. So I appreciate very much you spending this time with us, and I also appreciate you guys moving up on your agenda for your previous meeting so that Tanisha could join our meeting and have a vote on the new chair and be an active participant in our commission sooner rather than later. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. One, I just wanted to offer my thoughts as we move forward into the deeper discussions. And my intent in sharing this is to be helpful, not skeptical. So I hope that it's received that way. And I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that we're entering a very, very, very challenging budget season. This will be my fourth, and I'm sure it will be the most challenging that we face. And when I think about any kind of a service enhancement, I prioritize public safety above, I think, all else. So the recommendation that comes from the police commission and from staff will weigh heavily for me. But as we look for the gravitas that we need to sell these enhancements to both the Board of Finance and to the public, I think it would be helpful for me to start by understanding the areas quantitatively where we fall short, whether it could be with response rate or various crime statistics or traffic safety measures, so that we have real numbers that we can point to say, yes, we have a problem that needs to be addressed. So just some thoughts as we head closer into the more substantive discussions. I wanted to see if there were any other questions from the board or any other thoughts from the police commission.
I empathize with what you said, Eric, and I'm wrestling with the response because it's difficult to do, because there are things it's things that are difficult for the public to be able to understand and be comfortable with. So I'm not sure how that's. I don't know how this is going to evolve, but I hear your concern, and I understand it.
Okay. But please know it's coming from a place of wanting to be helpful to be able to move the request forward. Mm-hmm. Okay. If there is nothing else to add, then thank you for your time today and for the work that went into these recommendations, and look forward to continued dialogue with the Police Commission. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody, and stay well.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank
Be
you.
safe, folks. Thank you very much.